Hello class, this is Mrs. Smith and I'm going to teach you about science equipment today. These are the items that you'll be using in lab this year. So we're going to start with this setup right here. This is called a test tube clamp. There's a couple of different names on your lab paper, but we're going to call it the test tube clamp. And of course that's going to hold the test tube, which is over here. We always want to make sure that you hook it up near the top of the test tube, because generally you're going to use this piece of equipment when you're heating it with the Bunsen burner. You don't want the flame to be hitting this plastic because it's going to melt the plastic and make a horrible smell. So when you set this up, you want to tilt this. There's a couple different adjustment points here. This makes it looser. You can tighten it up by going the other way. Now it's good and tight and I can't swivel it. This is just a wing nut that tightens these clamps around the test tube, and you can raise it or lower it by using the screw up here. The Bunsen burner will be attached to the gas jet. Usually you want to check and make sure that the gas jet is working, because some of the gas jets don't work. So usually you turn this, and then when you hear the gas coming out, you know that this is a good jet to attach it to. Now our gas isn't turned on today, but it makes a shh kind of sound when it's coming out. So you just push it on there as far as you can, and you should be good to go. This is the test tube clamp. Another thing that you might get confused about is the test tube holder. The test tube holder doesn't hold for such a long period of time. The clamp is used when you're going to be heating something for longer than a couple of seconds. When you only need to briefly heat the test tube, then you want to use the test tube holder. Test tube holder, test tube clamp. Please keep them straight. Again, you want to attach the holder to the top of the test tube because this is made of metal. And what's going to happen if we get the metal too close to the flame, it's going to heat up and you won't be able to hold it. Please note that while I'm holding it at the very back so that I'm not tempted to squeeze this and then the test tube will fall out and break all over and chemicals will get all over the table and make a mess. So please attach it near the top. When you're holding it, just hold it at the back so you're not tempted to squeeze it. The other test tube item is the test tube rack, and you will use this when you require more than one test tube at a time. You just kind of line them up in there. Again, please note that we do not use the top rack of the test tube holder because they can kind of slide through there and hit the table and break. So we want to use the bottom rack there. This is the wash bottle. It's used for cleanup. It can actually squirt uphill. It's kind of a neat feature. So if you have something stuck on the bottom of your test tube, you can squirt this right into the tube and it washes down into the sink. Two other items that you might get confused about, their names. This is the micro pipette. Micro means small. This is the regular pipette. And this regular pipette has graduation marks on it. So you can measure out the different milliliters. This one only has one line for 1 milliliter up here at the top. To use this regular pipette, they come in plastic and glass, so please pay attention to which one you are using. You just push this piece on firmly, and then you'll turn the knob, and notice how the top goes up. That will be sucking the liquid up into the pipette. To release the liquid from the pipette, you hold this button over the sink. Now, I didn't drop water into there, obviously, but you would hold it until the liquid gets down to about here, and then you press the top down. That's how you use that. Please know the difference between a beaker and a flask. They are both used for holding solutions. This one's easier to swirl, so if you're making solutions, this one's easier to do. This is the beaker, this is the flask. Do not get them confused. They have the same purpose of holding liquids. This is called a burette. You will use it this year, later on in the year, and it is used for measuring very carefully the volume of liquid that you're going to dispense. You will use this in one of your first labs just to get an idea of how it works. You turn this halfway and it opens up, and then you can close it. Okay. Some other equipment that we'll be using include the graduated cylinder, which is used for measuring volume. This pipe stem triangle, which is going to be used to hold this crucible. These items are going to be used in conjunction with your laboratory burner. This is is the iron ring. The iron ring it acts as a platform onto which you can put other pieces of equipment. So the iron ring, the triangle, and the crucible all fit together like this underneath your lab burner. So you're going to be using this for heating small amounts of chemicals and helping them to release the water. These are the tongs that you'll use to handle the hot crucible. You can use them like this or flip them over and use it to pick up the edge of your crucible. Now if the crucible has a lid on it, obviously we can't use it to grab the edge, so you'll have to flip them over and use it to handle the crucible this way. Right? You'll practice these things in lab. I just want you to know how these pieces of equipment fit together and the kinds of setups you're going to have to be able to do this year in chemistry. Another thing that you use with the iron triangle is the wire gauze. So the wire gauze acts as a platform, much like this triangle did, but now we're going to use that in conjunction with the evaporating dish and the watch glass. The evaporating dish can sit right on that gauze, and the watch glass goes on top to make sure nothing splatters out of the evaporating dish. Obviously the name evaporating dish gives you the inkling that you're going to be evaporating some water from whatever's inside of the dish. So again, with the Bunsen burner underneath, it's going to be throwing the heat up, evaporating the water, and whatever kind of salt or residue is left behind, that's going to be something that we will want to measure. You will never touch these when they're hot. You will use the hot gripper, which you've seen in lab, and you'll move that to a place where it can cool. Other items that you need to know about are the electronic balance. We do not use triple beam balances in chemistry. To operate these electronic balances, take them out of the box and you plug them in. Press the on button and wait until it says 0.00 grams, and then it's ready to use. So you can put whatever object you need to find the mass of, because the balance is for determining the mass of an object, and then you can record that. It measures to the nearest hundredth of a gram. To turn it off, you simply hold down the on button until it says the word off on the screen. If you need to get chemicals out of its container, this is the scoopula, and you will simply scoop the chemical out of its container and into another container. You will not walk around with a scoopula full of chemicals. This is the spatula. You will use this end if you only need a very small amount scooped out of the chemical bottle. So this is really for obtaining a few grains of whatever chemical you need, whereas the scoopula will be used if you need a few grams of it. You will always measure things in a container. You will never measure items directly on this balance pad. If you are pouring liquids, the funnel is very helpful to get it into the necessary bottle. You can simply put the funnel on the top, pour the liquid in. The rubber stopper is important to prevent evaporation of water from a solution. So the stopper is going to close up this system and keep all the water in the container inside. The stirring rod is also good for making chemicals, mixing chemicals, I mean. So we will use that to stir. That's why it's called a stirring rod. The test tube brush is used for cleaning test tubes. If you fill a test tube with water, this will fit right down inside and scrub off any residue that might be on the side of that. This vessel is called a well plate, and it will be used for mixing drops of chemicals or small amounts of various solutions that you will use this year in chemistry. The hot plate is used for heating vessels of chemical, usually beakers or flasks of solutions. So you'll make sure that you plug this in and then turn it to the necessary power setting and let it heat up. The marking pencil is important for writing down which solution you have inside a container. You always want to mark your vessel before you put the chemical inside, and you will learn about these different ways of writing chemical formulas. This means salt. Do not use the marking pencil on this white spot. This white spot is used for a regular pencil. If you use this marking pencil on this white square, this marking pencil will never come off, and it will say the same chemical name for all eternity. So please do not use this on the white square. Use this pencil on the actual glass. To get it off of there, you simply just need to wipe it off, and the writing will come right off. That is most of the scientific equipment that we will be using this year in chemistry lab, and I hope you wrote down the uses of each item on your common laboratory equipment paper.